many of you have listened to the Head, Heart, and Boots podcast? I can't tell you that reaction, how much that means to us.
Welcome back to the Head, Heart, and Boots podcast. I'm Chris.
And I'm Brandon. Join us as we wrestle with what it takes to transform ourselves and the businesses we lead. This new camera angle makes my arms look smaller than yours.
I'm noticing that, and I really appreciate it. I thought you did that on purpose.
No, I didn't, and I am not happy with it. What's up, amigo?
Oh,
Try to jump in there, don't you dare.
happy Monday. We don't normally have production days on Monday.
No, we don't.
So this is kind of a unique experience. Hey, first of all, before we dive in, we've got a really great show for you today. My voice is really bassy this morning.
It's very sultry.
It's pretty manly.
Yes.
So for those of you that are brand new to Head, Heart, and Boots podcast, this is your very first introduction, or you've only heard a couple episodes. Who are we? Well, Brandon and I co-founded Floodlight Consulting Group. We're a full-service consulting company, a team of consultants that serve restoration companies all over the United States. This year, our clients will do almost $250 million worth of revenue, and we help them in a variety of ways.
Yeah.
So there you go, floodlightgrp.com. This show's all about the head, the heart, and the boots.
That is actually.
And we, I think that's what we enjoy about the podcast, and we hear that from other folks, is that, we talk about business, we get tactical here and there. And we also talk about just the heart, what's going on between our ears as well, right? I think sometimes it's hard for us to tell what's in our heart and what's in our mind.
For sure. Yeah.
But I think this podcast we did with Clint Pulver, so this is actually podcast number 3 with Clint.
Is it 3?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I'm pretty sure.
At least 2. I
It's
just
at
feel
least
so
2, maybe
honored,
3.
man, that he gives us that.
Hey, he's such a neat guy. We
my
had a chance
goodness.
to meet and chat with him.
Collective.
At the Core Collective, or Collective by Core, in Austin back in July this year. It was a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Just a really cool dude. And it was around that time, a little bit before that time, that I got turned on to another project that Clint's involved with called Finding Hill. And we end up spending about half of our conversation talking about his passion for helicopters. And it just turned into a really incredible story. And I find myself coming out of this. It's Monday, just for context, it's Monday morning.
Yeah.
Right now it's 9:10 a.m. We just spent over an hour with Clint, and what a tremendous way to start the week. So most of you, or many of you, will hear this on a Tuesday morning first thing, maybe as you're driving into the office. And I hope it brings you as much inspiration as it did Brandon and I. So dig in, cover a lot of different territory. We talk business, we talk mentorship, we talk company culture, we talk marriage, and we talk helicopters. It's a pretty sweet ride.
It's great.
So get ready.
Yeah. Well, my friend, oh boy, have we been looking forward to catching up with you again.
Yeah. We had so the last time we talked, we were in Austin at the Collective by Core.
Crushed.
And, awesome keynote. And anybody who's obviously seen you, I always want to say perform, because as somebody who also is kind of into music, right, it kind of feels like what you do is kind of like this mashup of masterclass and music performance meets onstage conversation. I don't really know how to describe it, but
that's really good. That's really close. Yeah, it's definitely an experience. That's for sure.
Experience. There we go.
Yeah,
that kind of catches all of it.
That's probably the safest way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen, man, I, just before we got on, you were talking about how busy life is and so forth. And one of the things that I think you're probably busy to some degree with is actually what I want to talk about. If you're okay, I thought we'd deviate a little bit from the normal script and maybe normal conversation around company culture and mentorship and some of the things that I know you've spent a lot of time on, and instead focus on something relatively new in your life, or newer. I'd really love to talk about Finding Hill and your passion for aviation. And I wonder if you could just maybe open up a little bit of backstory, and then depending on time, maybe we'll circle back and we'll talk some culture stuff and mentorship and millennials and things of that sort. But I'm really curious about this personal passion of yours. And within the let me maybe do a better job stage setting, because Brandon was like, yeah, okay. For me, the context of this is, I think so many of us get so hyper fixated on more and bigger and more and bigger in our work product. And I think we see in all the work we do with owners and executives that a lot of times it can be completely unintentional. It's just like, well, we did X last year, we got to do more this year, and we make our plans, we do our thing, and we're just nose down. And I think we forget to actually enjoy what we're in now. And I think many of us go years and years and even decades with no personal passions or hobbies or interests that we're cultivating. And I think there's, in many ways, there's like this ineffable value. Like, it's hard to describe the value of those things sometimes, but you know it when you feel it.
Yeah.
and
You almost stop dreaming. You're just working.
yeah, you lose the dream. And I think there's a value to dreaming and having other things in our lives besides work product, that has real value to our work and to all the other things in our life too. So anyways, within that context, I would love to hear more about this passion for you, because it seems like a really driving kind of force in your life. So
Well, and I think it ties in perfectly with what you're trying to kind of the direction you're trying to head, because in business, especially as an entrepreneur, if you're a business owner, a CEO, a leader, there's always that tendency to scale. I got to scale, scalability. We're scaling, we're scaling. And one thing that I did in my entrepreneurial journey that changed everything for me was Kelly and I, my wife and I, we got really specific on what does it look like in our world to reach true fulfillment, to where like you feel like we're fulfilled. Like, sure, we could have more, sure, we could always scale, but like it's enough. Like, when is enough enough? And golf for the last probably, I'd say maybe 2 to 3 years, we've been just working within that fulfillment. And it's been the sweetest experience of my life to kind of take off the pressure, to really say, okay, this is enough. And to be happy with that allows you to, I think, live, not just continually exist. And a lot of people exist, right? We're constantly chasing the next number, the next margin, the next opportunity, the next thing. Which again, if that helps to bring more fulfillment into your life, cool. But how can you be so specific on what that fulfillment looks like? And then when you get there, that's something that nobody really teaches leaders. Like, what happens when you actually get there?
Yeah. How do you see it and recognize it? Because it seems like sometimes you just blast right past an opportunity to enjoy it for a moment, and we don't even give ourselves the ability to do so,
There is always going to be a bigger mountain to climb. Always.
Yeah.
There always will be. And so, what mountain is big enough for you? What mountain is beautiful enough for you? What does that mountain look like? And when you reach the top, dude, take a minute and take in the view. Like, live there for a little while and enjoy that and come to terms with that. That's okay. We need to tell that lesson more often, because we teach people on how to get there. We don't teach people on what to do when you actually get there. And that's where I see a lot of burnt out, unhappy, unfulfilled leaders and entrepreneurs that, I don't know, dude, they're always chasing. And at the end of the day, life is short. And I really do. I think at the end of your life, I don't care what any of us do in this life, none of us are getting out alive. And at the end of a life, you're going to be surrounded by two things. You're going to be surrounded by the do it, did it, done it's, or you're going to be surrounded by the woulda, shoulda, couldas.
Yeah.
And that relevance of significance, not just success, but significance, to say this is where true joy was felt. Because, dude, at the end of your life, there's going to be maybe a few other eyes looking into your eyes, and it's probably your kiddos, your spouse, your partner. Like, dude, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And the legacy that you lived, where you truly, again, it's not about being the best in the world. It's about being the best for the world. So I hope that maybe helps to set a little bit of context in what we're about to talk about, and really what brought about this journey of finding Hill and everything that we're going to talk about.
I love that.
But so before you dive into that though, if you're willing, share Share a little bit of like specifically what that narrative has looked like with you and your wife, because I think we also don't talk about this enough. Like I think most of us don't even really ever learn how to be married, let alone how to be married well.
Yeah.
Like most
100%.
of us never really had great. We might have grown up in a good household and blah blah blah, but nobody ever really mentored us in how to be married well. I know that's certainly been true of me and my wife. And so set a little bit of context for what this conversation looked like between you two, that to define like what is fulfilled, how do we know when we're there, and then these last 2 or 3 years that you've described, like can you give a little bit more context for those of us that are trying to be better married?
Yeah. There's a quote by Zig Ziglar that talks about how you can either be a wandering generality or you can be a meaningful specific. And we have found better alignment, better congruency, better communication, love, connection, all the things in a marriage when we are striving to be as specific as we possibly can. My wife and I, Kelly and I, since literally the day we were married, we've had a vision board. It's a big deal in our lives. Every New Year's Eve, instead of going out and partying and celebrating the new year, we have Kelly and I and two other couples that we love that are dear friends of ours. And we get together at my house. We get pizza. We hang out, all the snacks, the candy, but we bring all the cardboard, all the ideas, and we go to work and we design the main goals for that year. And it's usually in different areas. So we've got, there's physical goals, athletic goals, health goals. So that's one section. And then there's the spiritual side of our goals for our family, things that we wanted to help teach our kiddos, things we're doing in our church callings and responsibilities. Then there's career goals. And then there's family goals. Maybe we put a trip in there. We put, a specific financial goal. So there's these different sections. And then what we do is each goal has just a picture. It's a beautiful thing. I'll have to send you guys a picture of it. But it sits in our bedroom. And every morning when I wake up, that's the first thing I see. It's also the last thing I see every time I go to bed. And we focus on it, right? How do you keep the main thing the main thing? And so Kelly and I, at the very beginning of every year, we align ourselves on what we're striving to do. And then we create the plan on how to do that. As crazy as it sounds, dude, weekly planning has been the greatest thing that we do. Every Sunday night, we did it last night. We sit down, and before we go to bed, we plan out the whole week. Where are you at? What are you doing? What do you need? How can I help you? Okay, cool, Clint, you're on tour. You're in these towns, this towns. Okay, we're arranging babysitters. Awesome. Okay, we've got this event that's coming up. I'm going to go fly the helicopter on this. Like, it's communication, right? How do we be meaningfully specific in what we're trying to do? So then we're on the same page. And do things still get crazy? All the time. But I think that sets us up for success, and that's created alignment to where you have two people pulling in a similar direction.
Yeah.
And that creates I don't know, I think better results, at least for us.
Are you guys both pretty naturally wired for that, or is there one of you that needed a little bit more tugging into that behavior or that discipline than the other?
Yeah, I think I was doing all of this before we got married. Kelly kind of did this, but not to like the level and the intensity and the specificity that I've approached it at. And so I think helping her to learn how to do this a little bit better has been something that's come from me to some extent. But also, I'm really fortunate because Kelly comes from a performing background. So I'm a touring musician, a touring speaker. Like, I'm gone, I'm on the road. She gets that. She gets that lifestyle, which is a massive blessing. Not every individual spouse or partner in my industry has that luxury. Like, they don't get it. They're like, I don't get why you're gone 3 days a week. Like, that's not okay for me. I need you home at 5 o'clock every day. I need you to shut work off. An entrepreneurial lifestyle versus like a W-2 9 to 5 working for the weekends. Like, there's a difference, right, in mentality there.
Yeah.
And I remember the dude. So the day I quit my job was the first day that Kelly and I went on our first date. So I was in the medical field, had the W-2, had the 9 to 5, the benefits, the works. I quit that. I quit my job, and I declared to the world that I was going to be a professional speaker. I also later that afternoon went on my first date with Kelly, and she's like, "What do you do for a living?" And I was like, "Nothing." She was like, "Awesome, this is great. This guy's really good with
Sign me
places."
up. Yeah.
But I told her, I was like, "I want to be a speaker," and she, she wasn't like, "Oh, that's like super sketchy." She was like, "Oh, okay, cool, awesome." She's like, "I have a few people that do that." Like she was in that performing world. Like you follow the dream and you sell everything and you move to LA and you just see what happens. And so I was really fortunate that she literally has been with me since day one of this journey.
Wow.
And I could not have done it without her, man. She's the backbone of everything that's taken place. You see me on stage, but I'm on stage and I'm able to do what I'm able to do because Kelly's amazing.
You
Yeah,
got a partner in crime. That's meaningful.
totally.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'm glad you asked that question. I was like, dude, I don't want to skip beyond that. Like,
How just one other thing before, and like I'm just so fascinated by this life you have, and I think there's so many parallels with the owners and leaders and people that listen to the show. Is everybody's a little bit different in terms of what brings energy to them, and I'm curious. I was actually, unbeknownst to you, I think I was really tightly kind of observing you during your keynote this last
Yeah,
summer
yeah,
in Austin
yeah.
together. I'm just really fascinated with people that do what you do and how you manage your energy, because what you do is so dependent on you being fully present. Like
Yes.
like you can tell when somebody is not dialed in, and like your work and a lot of the value you bring is really dependent on you being fully alive in that moment.
Yes.
And so I'm curious for you, like how do you steward that? Um, because I think a lot of owners really struggle with how to manage their energy. They know when they're off, and
Mhm.
they can feel the consequences of being off. But
Yes.
but again, nobody mentors us in marriage. Nobody really teaches us how to do these kind of things in leadership. And so how do you manage
good.
that energy, maybe practically and also spiritually, mentally, emotionally?
Yeah. The foundation is always rooted in passion and the drive for significance in my life. So I have to love it. It has to be something that I innately would enjoy doing. I love to drum. I love to take people on a ride. I love to inspire. The thought of somebody else living differently because of something I may have said or done, like sparks me through the roof. Like I love that. So it's rooted first and foremost in passion. And I think a lot of people are in a job that they're not passionate about. They're
Yeah.
in a position that they're not passionate about. Like that's the first problem, right? If we don't have that, then the rest of it can be really difficult. The other through line that I root myself in and that everything that I do is pulling from. I learned this quickly in the undercover research that every person is always asking the question, let me know when it gets to the part about me.
Mm.
So my energy level, how I communicate, what I do, like my whole goal in this podcast is to get to the part about the people that are listening, right? It's to get to the part about you guys too, right? It's your podcast. I got to blow it up for you guys, but ultimately, I'm blowing it up for the listener that's driving to work on a Friday morning, listening to this, going, "Okay, this was worth my time," and that charges me up. That gives me a desire to add value to an individual where they go, "This was worth it."
Mm.
Yeah.
And I want to come back. I want to keep doing this. I want more of this. And I love that. I love that feeling. And again, it's my book's called I Love It Here, right? How do we create organizations that people never want to leave? How do you build a relationship that your partner never wants to leave because they like themselves best when they're with you,
Yeah.
right? How do we create better school? Like I'm so charged on that idea. And so when I'm on stage, that's the foundation
Mm.
is how I bring in a story and I get quieter. Like, because all I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get to the part about you to where you might listen a little bit more and you
Yeah.
might buy in and you might go, man, I was so impacted. I'm going to live different. And that is the foundation to everything.
Dude, I hear you say that, and I think it's so inspirational. And I'm just thinking through some of the last several conversations I've had with leaders that I really respect, but they're tired.
Yep.
Like they started their business, with the same thing. Like they understood that it would create freedom for them and their families. They understood that they were creating a platform that potentially created opportunity for many people, their employees, right?
Yep.
And we all know that humans are difficult. and you get a group of humans inside the kind of the box, if you will, or the playground of a business or a formal entity, and we're trying to appease, we're trying to create universal momentum, we're trying to, you know, all kind of come under this flag and this banner of, hey, if we all pull together, we're gonna have a really awesome opportunity. And then it's just like there's this reality check sometimes that we get faced with, that it's hard to keep that perspective. It's hard to remain motivated. I know it's no different for you. You have a ridiculous schedule, and travel, no matter like how much people are into travel, after a while, it breaks you down. It is wreaking,
Yep.
you know, a tax. And so how do you get back in the zone? Like how do we tell our listeners that they started their business for the right reason, and they are just inundated in the grind right now, and they're having a tough time creating a new set of inspirations to get back out on the surface, right? To start paddling in an intentional direction. Like, what do you do to pull yourself back out of those places?
Yeah.
Do they not happen to you? I guess maybe that's a better.
No, it happens. No, it happens. Trust me. It happens. I'm burnt out even right now in the extent of travel, right? You bring up travel and I'm tired, right? I've been touring for, God, almost 2 months. And, you know, I have specific responsibilities at home. I have specific responsibilities in my church. And like, I'll red eye home to do church on Sunday. And I do all of that. And then I red eye out. And through the only times during the week, at times where I get to see my kiddos, is when they come up on the stand with me, and I get to hold them and sit with them, and then I send them back to mom, and I'm gone on an airplane. Like that's it. And so it is hard, and that's taxing too. It's taxing on a marriage. Like even Kelly and I, we had a conversation last week. Like no more commitments, no more commitments. Like we're done. Like because I talk about like working within your fulfillment, being truly fulfilled. But once you're fulfilled, there's lots of opportunities that come up in that fulfillment. And so I think, if I've said this before, I think you guys maybe remember it in the talk. If you're facing in the right direction, all you have to do is keep walking. Most people, though, they forget what the direction is, and we're walking, we're busy, but we're not truly aligned with the reason why we started, the reason that we're trying to do what we do. Like all these companies will say we focus on our people, right? It's all about our people. But then you look at their day to day and what they're really doing, dude, it's all about product. It's all about customer service. It's all about making sure that we bring in revenue faster and quicker. It's like, dude, you're not doing anything for your people. But that's like what you profess on your website, right? That's what you preach at all these conferences and these like, but your people aren't feeling that in any way. And so I come back to, again, the power of a to don't list, man. I use that in my life. Instead of making the to-dos, I make a to don't list every week of the things that I am going to stop doing so that I can say yes to the things that actually really matter, that matter to the direction that me and my family, my business, my life really wants to move. And it's the to don'ts, dude. The simplicity of doing less is where we find the ultimate sophistication and significance. That's Da Vinci, right? Da Vinci said simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. How can you simplify your life? How can you bring in other people to help? Like we brought in, like I'm just talking family, right? Because we're kind of in that we've been talking about that. Like we brought in someone to help clean the house. Like we've got a babysitter crew that's amazing, that when I'm on tour, like they come in and they let Kelly get out for a few nights.
Yeah.
Kelly's a performer too. I want her to be in shows. She's way more talented than I am, like way more talented. She deserves to be on stages too. So how do we collaborate? I got to say no to a few things so that I can say yes to her. We got to bring in support. We've got to, okay, we could put extra money to this, but we actually need to put it towards this and this, because that's going to give us more time. I think this is really important. There's something to be said for financial affluence in your life. There's also something to be said for time affluence. How do we have more of it?
Yeah.
And I think that's a big problem with so many leaders, is they just don't have time.
Yeah.
They don't have time. And we got to bring a currency back to the importance of creating more time in our lives that lowers stress, that increases connection, and ultimately allows you to be more present and purposeful in your leadership.
Man, I think there is
Mm.
actually a ton that you just said there that I hope people kind of sit in a little bit. I mean, Chris and I were just talking about this last week. I recently was able to get away for a while for a hunting trip, and we were just talking
Hmm.
about like you just rethink things because you're so present in the moment. You're just taking all these things in that you've been surrounded by multiple times before, but it's just like you're so distracted with the grinding, the actions, the commitments that the journey becomes so like lame. Like I don't know, but it just becomes like you're not enjoying anything in your travel from A to Z. And there's just this kind of reminding I think we need to give ourselves of this is a long trip. Like
Yep.
if you're not enjoying the journey, you're literally going to give up what you're going to spend the vast majority of your life doing. It's the journey. Like the landing, the top of the mountain that you're referencing, like for many of us, we don't that could come way down the line. And I don't want to be miserable between A and Z, knowing it could be a 10, 20-year
Mm.
adventure that we're engaged in. And I think part of what I'm hearing you say, at least for me, is I've got to be very clear about what I want, and I have to be looking for those experiential like goalposts along the way that are reminding me, hey, you're actually right now living what you want. Like you have these things around
Mm.
you. You have the ability to lean in into
Mhm.
recognizing these things and enjoying the trip a lot more. And because if I don't, man, I am so focused on Z, I just miss the entire experience. And then I get there and I'm like, well, that was fun. Let's go to the next goalpost. And it's out,
Right.
the
That's
next
right.
lift, the next volume, whatever it is. And I kind of am perpetually a little miserable because
Mm.
I'm
Yep.
always chasing the thing I'm going to be happy about once I get there,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Like
I hear
I
you boycotting that with your, you're committed to not allowing that to happen, essentially.
Yeah, and so many of the moments that we think are going to bring the ultimate happiness in our lives are sometimes so fleeting. Like you get the shiny car, you get the promotion, you get the like the shine kind of wears off, and at the end of the day, like you're stuck in this. You're still left with your character. You're
Yeah.
still left with your heart. You're still left with your little kiddos and the family, like the people that because sometimes we drag people through the mud to get these things. And I remember when I got my Emmy award, like, and I remember after that moment, like it was really cool. Okay, like it was a cool accolade, an amazing thing. We had worked our tails off. It had been, but I remember after that moment, like literally like 2 days after that, I was like, man, I'm so glad that I didn't sell my soul for this,
Uh,
like little piece of metal,
yeah. Yeah.
like, and a lot of people do that, right? We're chasing this thing that like, top Fortune 500, top place to like, and I love that quote where it says, "Fame, if you win it, comes and goes in a minute."
Mm.
Oh, wow.
And to realize that the highs, like the mountain peaks, like that's why I'm so big on like, hey, once you're there, like settle in, and be okay with like, hey, dude, it's enough. What is enough for you? And to be able to strive for that. But once you're there, work in that fulfillment. That's a beautiful place to be because
Wow.
then it's not always chasing the little highs, the little it's more consistent joy. That's what I'm saying. Like, how do we create more consistent joy? Yeah.
That's good. Yeah.
That is good.
One of the things I was thinking about, and then we're gonna get to helicopters, is as you say that 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 piece around enjoying what you have and what satisfaction looks like. So you clearly, I think people can hear it in your stories, winning Emmys, like the travel time. You are not short on drive. I think sometimes people, and at least I'm voicing me, is I have a tendency that I feel like if I give myself the chance to enjoy, if I let, in quotes, satisfaction creep in, that
Yeah.
ultimately I'm giving up on what's possible or what I'm capable of or what I could potentially do. And I think a lot of that just comes from that driver personality and a lot of entrepreneurs and business leaders. We have some version of this. You have some version of this. How do you keep that in check? Like, what is that balance or the markers for you where you're satisfied, yet you're not giving in or giving up or rolling over. You know what I mean?
Mm.
There's been some major quotes in my life. I'm kind of a big quote guy. Quotes have always moved me. Um, so I'm gonna share a couple quotes. First one is the quote by Oscar Wilde, where he said, "To live is the rarest thing in the world, for most people merely exist." Like to really live, most people just exist in this world. So that was a marker in my life where I said, okay, what is it that would allow me to feel like at the end of a life, I really lived? So vision board helps with that. And then I have a bucket list. Bucket list really helps with that to kind of go, all right, these are the things that I'm really intentional in living. There's also a quote by Mark Twain where he said there's two important days in a person's life: the day they're born and then the day they figure out why.
Mm.
So
Interesting.
day you were born is pretty cool. Now the day you figure out why you were born, like why are you here? Uh, the day I really figured that out was the day I started living, and that was the day that I quit my job to pursue speaking. So finding that is key. So there's the ability to live, which is kind of I would almost call that more of like passion to some extent,
Yeah.
where it's like it's fulfilling you. At the end of the day, you go like, I lived, I had a good time, I had fun, I experienced things, I traveled, I gave back, it's about you.
Yeah.
Where I think on why you're here and your calling, that is heavily focused on purpose. That is doing something bigger than you. That is who you are benefiting the world. Um, I'm boiling this down to three categories: passion, purpose, and then the ability to provide. I call them the three P's.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And then there's a monetary side of this, dude. I don't care who you are. If you want to live as a responsible human being, money's a part of the equation.
Yeah.
Right? I know a lot of people that are full of passion, doing what they love, but they're stressed out in their minds because they can't pay their bills.
Yeah.
Right? Like I would love to just, go and be a photographer and take pictures in Africa, but like I got a family of 5 kids and I can't do that. Like, so there's a balance, right? So what is it that you're innately passionate about that's going to allow you to live? What is it that you're put on this earth to do to better the world? And then third, what is the financial amount that would allow you to have enough that is sufficient for you? I don't think people ask themselves that question enough.
Yeah.
Um, there's studies that show like, okay, after, a certain amount of dollar value, like the rest is just is mental, right? Like, what are your basic needs? What is it that would allow you to just not live in paycheck to paycheck? You could take the kids on a vacation. You could kind of like, what does that look like? Because a lot of times the motive is money, right? Is the ability to provide, to build that house, to have that car, to provide a lifestyle for your kiddos that they have a better life than you do. Like, what does that look like? Is it 200,000 a year? Is it 3 million a year? Like, really? Like, what does that look like? Um, and when you get there again, you're constantly evaluating, you're constantly kind of tweaking, but to have a baseline, like create that baseline. And I just don't think a lot of people do that. They don't take enough time. And that was the last quote: is more people need to dream. They need to dream more while they're awake. We don't take the time. When's the last time you actually took the time to dream?
Yeah.
Like to just think of what if and what could be,
Yeah.
and to create a bucket list. Like give yourself a little permission to just to dream and to design and chip away at it. And little by little, over time, a little becomes a lot. And you're living in a specific way. And I think it's needed. Passion, purpose, and the ability to provide. Those three P's.
Love that, dude.
Okay, I want to make sure we have time to talk about Finding Hill. We gotta transition. This is so good, man. Um, where did that begin? And
Yeah.
take us all the way back with the Cliff Notes origin story, and then bring us up to speed to current of where you're at. And I think too, if you're willing to share, where's this going? Like where do you see this evolving?
Yeah.
Is it something that's going to take over what Clint is really focused on and Clint speaking, or is this just a hobby side project passion thing? Anyway.
Yeah. So I've tried to kind of boil down like a lot of, I talk about those three P's. Helicopters, aviation, definitely a massive passion. Music, drumming, definitely a passion. My faith, massive passion. Being a dad and a good husband, massively a passion. So those are kind of like those big categories for me. And before really any of those, it was always helicopters. Like from the time I was maybe 3, 4, 5 years old, like that was it. That was my first love. If you were to ask me, what did you innately just want to be around? It was never the drums at first. It was helicopters. Dude, there was something about the ability of for a machine and the power and the sound and the blades, and it could just lift off like a magic carpet and hover, and you could go anywhere. It was the ultimate freedom.
Mm.
And the sound, like the jet fuel. I went to my first air show, and I'll never forget the guy that gave me my first helicopter ride, and I was hooked. I was just in. It was something that they say it's in your blood. It's in my blood. I come from a few aviators in my family. My grandpa was big into aviation. I have an uncle that's a pilot, and I just said, that's it. That's what I want to do. There was nothing. I wanted to fly for the University of Utah Air Med and go and save people. I wanted to be a life flight helicopter pilot and save lives with doing what I love. That was it. And I graduated high school with my pilot's license. I went fixed wing first, so I flew airplanes. And then I went and served a 2-year mission for my church. I came back. I'm now 21, and the goal is to go right into flight school. And at 21, you have to renew your driver's license. So I went into the DMV. I went through the whole thing, handed the paperwork. I put my head in this black box. I start reading off the letters for the vision check. I can't read the letters. All I see are like 6 little black dots. And the lady's like, read the letters. And I'm like, I can't see the letters. She goes, you just have to push harder. And I'm pushing. Nothing's changing. She comes from around the counter, pushes me out of the way, puts her head in the black box, and she reads out loud, CKGELFWZYN. And she looks at me and she goes, kid, can you read? And I was like, ma'am, yes, I can read. She said, then honey, I think you're blind. You have a vision problem. And I remember just like the reaction of my face in that moment. And I looked at her and I said, I drove here today. And she said, you're not driving back.
Oh,
and she took a red stamp and she pushed it on my paperwork, and it read denied. So now I'm under house arrest at the DMV.
oh.
I called my mom. I'm like, I have no idea what's happening. My mom picks me up. Long story short, I end up at the Moran Eye Center with one of the top leading authorities in a rare and degenerative eye disease known as keratoconus. And as a young 21-year-old kid, my eyes were as bad as an 87-year-old's. Keratoconus, it's a degenerative disease. So it thins out your corneas till eventually you go blind. And, we talk about passion and purpose and being meaningful. I know what it feels like to have a dream. I also know what it feels like to have that dream taken from you. And I think that's forced me in my life to cherish dreams, to cherish living, because you don't really realize how important that is until you can't achieve it anymore, until that's gone from you. And I sat there in that room with that doctor, and he said, you'll never fly. And he said, you've got until age 31, 32 until you go blind.
Oh, wow.
And then he asked the question like so many of us were asked when we were younger, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? What's your plan? And I said, with tears in my eyes, I was like, Doc, nobody wants to fly more than me. Like, I just want to fly. And he got close to me and he said, it's not going to happen ever. And at that time, corneal transplants were the only thing that they could really do to save my eyesight. The failure rate on those transplants was extremely high. And so the goal was, we're going to wait this out. The disease is going to progressively get worse. Your eyesight is going to get worse. And hopefully by the time before you get to critical zone where we start really losing repairable and correctable sight, we will do the transplant. But hopefully something else comes out technology-wise, medical advancement-wise, that prevents us from having to do that. And I'll never forget, I had graduated college. I ended up going to college, was never going to go to college. I worked in the medical field. I chased the money. My dad was in the medical field. Um, I became an orthopedic specialist. I went to 5 years of training to do that. It was so miserable. I was making crazy great money. I was in Utah. I had the 9 to 5, the benefits, all of it. High competitive job, working in an amazing industry with an amazing organization. But in college, I was shared those quotes that I shared with you. Quote by Oscar Wilde: "To live is the rarest thing. 2 important days in a person's life." And so I had been taught what it meant to really live a purposeful and meaningful life. And I wasn't doing that. Every day it was rinse and repeat. Every day it was work until Friday. And I sat down with 3 of my buddies one day in frustration, total burnout. And I said, there has to be more. What if you could find a job? And that's where the 3 P's come from, that allowed you to do what you love, had a sense of purpose, and allowed you to provide in a way that was sufficient for you. Passion, purpose, and provide. Both my buddies, they're college grads. They said, I don't think that's going to happen, dude. Like, I don't, like, look at most jobs. Most people aren't fulfilled. Like, it just is what it is, man. And I just said, that can't be. He goes, what you're asking for is so rare. And it triggered that quote by Oscar Wilde. I love this movie called We Bought a Zoo. Have you guys seen this movie?
Oh,
It's so good. Go watch it. We
okay.
Bought a Zoo. It's an entrepreneurial movie that just is so moving. And there's a quote in that movie. The through line of that movie is the power of 20 seconds of insane courage. If you can just muster up 20 seconds of insane courage to do things that are really hard in your life, like, it's amazing what you can accomplish. And I remember I mustered up 20 seconds of insane courage on the day that I met Kelly. And I walked into my boss's office and I said, I have to quit. And the day that I quit my job was the day I started living. And it was in pursuit of this new endeavor. And that's when I became a professional speaker. We started the Undercover Millennial program. I wrote the book. I incorporated the drumming into my presentation. And here we are today. But 5 years after college, they came out with a new procedure that wasn't FDA approved called cross-linking. And I was one of the first human trials to have that procedure done. They called me up and they said, Clint, you can get on the list. We'll do the procedure on your right eye. And then 6 months later, we'll do the procedure on your left eye. And I was number 48. And I'll never forget. I just started to cry. I was like, yes, like, I'm in. I'll do, because either that or I'm going to go blind.
Yeah.
And at that time, I was barely legal enough to drive.
Wow.
And it worked. It's called cross-linking. It worked beautifully. It stopped the progression of the disease. However, I still couldn't see well enough to be able to fly. Fast forward to 2 years ago. We're now 2 years later into where I am today. I was in a routine eye exam with a doctor, and he's looking at my medical papers because I have to go in often with keratoconus. My eyes are always changing. The shaping, the coning. I had gas permeable lenses. They'd always pop out. Like, it was just miserable. And so he's looking at the fit, looking at the shape, and he goes, why are you not in scleral lenses? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he goes, dude, he's like, it's a brand new lens that's changing the game for people with your eye disease. Then I looked at him and I said, listen, I've been through this a lot. And I've talked to many people, and I've talked to many doctors, and I've gone fit after fit. I've tried hundreds of contact lenses. And I said, I'm good. I said, well, it's a decent fit right now. He goes, no. He said, you don't understand. And he started explaining the technology, what it was. And finally, he talked me into it. I'm like, fine, I have nothing else to lose. And we went through about 4 months of fit after fit with the scleral design. And I'll never forget that day in that room. And he puts the final fit in. He says, what's better, 1 or 2? And I said, 2. He goes, okay, what's better, 2 or 3? And I said, 2. And he goes, read the line. And I said, CKLFGZYN. And he pushes the thing back and he goes, "You just read the 2020 line."
Nice.
And I start crying again. I'm getting emotional in my old age. And I remember the first thought in my mind is, I can fly. I can fly. Like, this now is real. And 2 weeks after that moment, I bought my first helicopter, the HX-50, built by Hill. And it's a brand new helicopter that's being built in the UK. And it came out in 2020. It's been in stealth mode for 20 years. And there was all of these Facebook ads, all of this buzz when it announced. And I remember looking back in 2020, couldn't fly. My eyes were horrible. But I said, man, if I could ever do it, if it ever worked for me, that would be the helicopter that I would buy. And man, I learned really quickly that sometimes in our lives, sometimes good things fall apart so that better things can fit together. And it has been a testament that I'm now in a position, and I look at the orchestration of a God that I believe in, and that's a big part of my life, as you've been able to maybe catch on to. But there's an orchestration that I needed to do other things. That, again, there is a purpose, there is a reason why I'm here, and there is something that I'm supposed to be doing. But sometimes good things fall apart so that better things can fit together. And I'm now in a position, and I look back at if I really would have been a helicopter pilot, I don't know if I'd ever be in a financial position or ability to own my own helicopter.
Yeah.
Or what does that lifestyle look like? Could I have been killed doing that? Could I, would I have ever met Kelly? Like, it's easy to sometimes look back and to go, okay, you can see how it all came together. But now moving forward, it has been amazing to see the orchestration and the pieces that have fallen into place. And we have now created a YouTube series called Finding Hill, that from the day I found out that I could fly to currently what we are doing, and how the world of aviation and going back into flying helicopters has changed everything for me. And yes, I'm still speaking. Yes, I'm still playing the drums. But this is now another puzzle piece in that fulfillment that we're working within. And if you get a chance, watch the series. It's not just about helicopters. It's about truly living. It's about finding that passion. It's about being alive and dreaming more while you're awake. And what's the childlike wonder? The things that you used to think about as a kid. How do we bring that back? And you asked, what are you doing now and where is this going? We just started a foundation called Dream Machines. And when I was in high school, there was this old farmer that in his barn, he had this old dusty ultralight. An ultralight's like a little death trap in the sky. It has a hang glider wing. It's got a little piston engine, like a snowmobile engine, and you just strap your thing to this and you fly. And they would use it for crop dusting. They'd use it to tow hang gliders up. Like, it was this crazy farmer. And I remember me and my buddies, we were like, we will do whatever it takes to work on your farm and to pay this off. And will you let us, like, it was so old, it was so dusty. He was like, yeah, I don't use it anymore. He's like, I'll sell it to you. So we worked our tails off on the farm, and we bought this little dumb ultralight, and we outfitted it, and we cleaned it, and we put this cardboard cowling, and me and my buddies, we called it the Dream Machine. Because for us as kids, like in high school, dude, that was freedom. That was the ultimate like thing. It gave us hope. It gave us something to dream about. It gave us something to chase. It brought us together. It was just adventure. It represented fun. And my mom never let me fly it. She was like, if you fly it, I will kill you I will never let you do this.
Before you die in
before you die in this thing. Like, she was so mad that I bought it. And we ended up selling it. It helped fund flight school. But I always just loved the Dream Machine, man. Everybody needs one big, inspiring dream. Like, what's one big, crazy, inspiring dream in your life? And the Dream Machine was that. And my dad taught me growing up. He said, Clint, in life, it's so important that you learn, you earn, and you return. You learn, you're going to learn a lot. You're going to learn a lot in school. You're going to learn a lot in your relationships. You're going to learn a lot in the adventure that is life. It's important that you earn from that, right? You apply it. you earn a living, you earn friendships, you create a dynamic where because of your value, the world gives to you. But then he said it's really important that you return. Always remember where you came from. Always remember who gave you your start. Always remember to give back. How do you not just write a great story, but how do you help others to also write and live a better story? That's fulfillment. That's significance. And so I wrote on my bucket list, and it's a big part of what I do in my life. And it was number 26. And it was create a foundation for kids with disabilities that would give them the gift of flight. And this year, we created the Dream Machines Foundation. And we partner with Make-A-Wish, Kids on the Move, Breaking Barriers. There are these entities that help kids that are blind, kids that have autism, kids that are Down syndrome, kids that struggle with spina bifida, or just disabilities that are so hard. And as someone who had a disability, and everybody has a disability, you have a disability, we all have disabilities. Some are just a little bit more visible than others.
Yeah.
And the goal was to create the magic of flight in the lives of those that need it the most. And we get volunteer pilots. We fly in 4 different helicopters. We bring in AirMed, the Life Flight helicopter, the Utah Highway Patrol. They bring in their helicopters, and we create the ultimate Disneyland experience meets Top Gun. And we give these kiddos and their families the gift of flight. And we take them up in helicopters. We take them up in turboprop jets, aircraft that they would never have the opportunity to experience. And it's been one of the most fulfilling things I've ever done in my life. And so the goal is to continue to pursue that. And just that's what's so fun about flying, is to create the moments in the lives of other people. It's fun to fly. It's magic to create that moment in the lives of other people.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine. We had somebody share their passion of flight with us, and they took us out on a trip where we flew over the Oregon coast out over the ocean, and it was the look in his face and my friend's face that was able to fly the helicopter. It was really fun to watch how excited he got about our excitement. Like you could see it, right? Like boiling
Yeah.
out of him, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like just for a second, I can kind of connect with what you're saying. I can't imagine doing it at the level that you're talking about, where this is life-changing experience. It must just be profound.
When you see these kiddos, and you can just tell. And even, to be honest, too, the parents, man. Like these parents and what they go through and what they experience having a child that struggles on so many emotional, physical levels with these disabilities, and the heaviness, the stress, the heartache, the pain that these people feel. And when you put them in that cockpit, you put them in that helicopter, and you start to spoil that engine up, and those blades bite, and you just lift off, dude, everything, all of that in their life completely disappears.
Wow.
And for that, 15, 20 minutes in the air, dude, they are completely encapsulated and embraced into a moment that is so magical.
Wow.
And it's freedom. They become truly free. And how do we create more of that in this world, right? For us in our lives personally, in our families, in our communities. That's what this is about, I think. And so it's been a wild ride, but it's
That is
been
so epic.
I think you just created the perfect close.
Yeah.
I don't know where to go from here, man. It's such a beautiful story to hear about the direction you've kind of pointed your life, and the intentionality that you bring to it. Yeah, it's inspiring me, man, on this Monday morning. I'm like, all right, how do I embody more of that in my life and where I'm at right now? And I think that's the invitation to all of you listening to this, right? Is how do we embody more of that intention and reflection? So love that, man. Thank you so much for
You're
taking
so welcome.
this morning. It was so awesome.
You're
I
so
love you both. You have been two amazing advocates in my life, and nobody does this life right on their own. And it's because of people like you, right? You guys have believed in me and have been an advocate and a support and a voice in what we're trying to do in this world. And so I'll never forget you for it. Appreciate you both so much. And it's an honor to be back on the podcast. And thank you for the good that you do.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah, thanks, Clint.
Appreciate you, man.
Yeah.
So much. Okay, dude. Well, guys, if you just went along for that ride in more than one way, I think there was something for all of us just to sit in a bit and reflect on and ask ourselves some really hard questions. And then obviously, man, chase Clint down. Go find what he's doing, watch what he does and how he lives. It just will continue to inspire you to take more action and intent on building what you want versus just getting swept up in everything that's around.
And check out Finding Hill. Go Google it. I mean, truly, like, not only, man, is it inspiring, as people already got a flavor for, but it's
super cool.
Yeah, the cinematics are beautiful. It's just like it's absorbing the videos. So highly recommend people check that out. Finding Hill, easy to find on YouTube.
Thanks for hanging with us, guys. Thanks
Steve.
again, Clint. We'll see you soon, brother.
You're welcome.